Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Please
Dhamma
accept
pranams.
obeisances unto your feet. Thank,
Hare
thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Dhammapat.
Thank you so much for joining.
Hare Krishna.
Again, a blissful 3 hours. So excited.
Haribol, Haribol. So can we start? I've wait a few minutes.
Prabhuji, yes, please, we can please start. Devotees would join it in between. If,
Okay. All right. All right. A minute. Om Jnanatamridasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshuramlitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yottapadakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sanjivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitam Sya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Ashri Tatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Titaneti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvise Sashmiyavadi Pasachade Satarini Vancha Kalpatarvyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam lagayate grim. Yat kripatamahad vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyaptayina Characharam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to today's session. Today we are going to start with chapter 22. Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. But before we do that, there were some selected verses from 21 that we have to discuss maybe for the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes at most, before we embark on chapter 22. So we touched on some two verses yesterday. Today we're beginning with verse 9. So this is 19, sorry. I think I've gone beyond. It should be 22:9, 21:9, 21:9, when 19, 21:9. Yeah, 21:9. Said because Maharaj Prithu was blessed by the Brahmanas and saintly persons, he ruled over the earth and exploited its resources for the benefit of all. So it is said, Kim tasya dulabhataram ihaloke paratracha, that any person upon whom the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas are pleased can achieve anything which is very rare to achieve in this world. In other words, anyone who is blessed by the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, there is nothing impossible for him to achieve. Because the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas are the bearers of Lord Vishnu. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are worshippers of Lord Vishnu. They please Lord Vishnu. Therefore, if they become favorably disposed towards any living entity, towards anyone, there is nothing impossible for such a soul. So here it is said that because Prithu Maharaj was blessed by the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, they were pleased with him, he was able to exploit the resources of the earth planet for the benefit of all living entities. So the secret here is the secret of success for Prithu Maharaj is pleasing the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. So if we want to achieve something very special, we want to make a special achievement, then we must learn to please the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. As soon as the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas are satisfied, they're pleased, everything becomes possible. Everything becomes easy. Just as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj says, Katanchana smiti yasmin duskaram sukaram bhavet. Anyone who remembers Lord Chaitanya, whatever is difficult to execute becomes very, very easy to achieve. And when Lord Chaitanya is forgotten, whatever is easy to achieve becomes very difficult to achieve. So by remembering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everything becomes very easy to achieve. Similarly, by pleasing the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, one can achieve anything he wants to achieve in life. So the secret is we should learn how to please the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. In text 12, it says, when a living entity falls down to the material world, he forgets his relationship with Achyuta and becomes Chuta, fallen. So in the present situation, we are all Chuta, we are all fallen, because we have given up the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna Buliye Jiva Anadi Bahir Mukha. Now, from time immemorial, the living entity has forgotten Krishna. And as a result, he becomes attracted by the external feature called Maya. And Maya continuously gives the living entity trouble. So, because we have given up the association of Krishna, we have to take shelter of Maya. We have to associate with Maya. The living entity cannot be free from association. Either we associate with the divine nature or we associate with the external energy. When we associate with the divine nature, our life is very blissful. And when we associate with the material nature, our life is very miserable. So the choice is ours. Whether we want to remain blissful in the divine association of the Lord, or we want to remain miserable in the association of its external energy. So once we give up the association of the Lord, we become fallen. We become Chuta. And this fallen condition, fallen situation is actually not the best for a living entity, because he is harassed by the external energy of the Lord. So better we take advantage, better we take shelter of the divine energy. Mahatmanastu man paratam daivim prakriti astritaha. Those who are great souls, Mahatmas, Krishna says they always take shelter of his divine energy. So that is the most secure position for every living entity, to remain connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. That is our most secured position. Any other position is a miserable position, especially when we associate with the material energy. The material energy, under the modes of nature, will give us a lot of trouble. In text 20, Prithu Maharaj's speech was composed in highly metaphorical, ornamental language. Maharaj Prithu was beautiful in his external bodily features, and his speech was also very glorious in all respects. His words, which were nicely composed in highly metaphorical, ornamental language, were pleasing to hear, and were not only mellow, but also very clearly understandable and without doubt or any ambiguity. So in the Ujjwala Nilamani, Rupa Goswami's book, Ujjwala Nilamani, it is mentioned how there are different types of speech. Actually, so there are 10 divisions of speech: Prajalpa, Parijalpa, Vijalpa, Ujalpa, Sanjalpa, Avajalpa, Abijalpa, Ajajalpa, Pratijalpa, and Sujalpa. So these are different types of speeches, different divisions of speeches. But it is said that Krishna is eager to bring his own beloved speech. Krishna's speech is so sweet. Krishna's speech is so attractive that the Lord himself becomes attracted to his own speech. These 10 types of speeches that are described are actually practiced by Srimati Radharani. In different moods, she adopts a different type of speech. But Krishna's speech is like nectar flowing from the lotus lips of Krishna. And it's so wonderful that the Lord himself becomes eager to drink the sweetness of his own beloved speech. And that tells us the wonderful nature of Prithu Maharaj's speech, because Prithu Maharaj is a certain Avesha avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's an incarnation. So therefore, his speech was so attractive. His speech was so sweet. Everyone in the arena enjoyed Prithu Maharaj's speech, just as Krishna himself is eager to hear his own speech. Of course, we know that everything about Krishna is sweet. Maduram, Maduram, Maduram. Krishna is the emperor of sweetness. His talking is sweet. His dancing is sweet. His glances are sweet. His walking is sweet. His flute is sweet. His body is sweet. His kingdom is sweet. Everything about the emperor of sweetness is sweet. His name is sweet. His devotees are sweet. Everything about Krishna is sweet. And that is why we are interested in Krishna. We are not interested in anything else. Because we want to associate with the sweetest person. And that is Krishna. So, Prithu Maharaj's speech is manifesting the sweetness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 23. It says, evidence on the very literatures should be accepted as final authority. Maharaj Prithu gives special stress to the word Brahma Vadina by the experts in Vedic knowledge. Brahma refers to the Vedas, which are also known as Sabda Brahma, or transcendental sound. Transcendental sound is not ordinary language, although it appears to be written in ordinary language. Evidence on the very literature should be accepted as final authority. In the very literature, there is much information. And of course, there is information about the execution of a king's duty. A responsible king who executes his appointed duty by giving proper prosecution to all living entities on this planet is promoted to the heavenly planetary system. So, the very literatures should be accepted as the final authority. In the Madhyama Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Das Kaviraj says, Maya Mugda Jivere Nahi Swata Krishna Gyan. Jivere Kripaya Koila Krishna Veda Purana. That the conditioned soul on its own cannot liberate himself. The conditioned soul cannot revive his Krishna consciousness by his own effort. But out of the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the Vedic literatures were compiled just to help the living entities increase their Krishna consciousness, to help them become Krishna conscious, to help them elevate their consciousness, to help them transform their consciousness. So the Vedic literatures are designed for elevating the consciousness of the living entity. And therefore, any living entity who wants to become elevated, he has to take shelter of the knowledge coming from the Vedic literatures. The Lord has incarnated as Vyasdev Krishna Dwapayan Vyasdev to compile the very literatures for the benefit of the living entities in the material world. That is how merciful the Lord is. The Lord is always thinking about the welfare of the living entity. Therefore, he incarnates in his literary form, literary incarnation, Srila Vyasdev, just to compile the very literatures for the benefit of all living entities. So we have to take shelter of this evident Vedic literatures. '28, '29. It says the best way to mold one's life is to follow in the footsteps of the authorized personalities. Narottam Das Thakur states that one has to ascertain the right path of his activities by following in the footsteps of great saintly persons and books of knowledge under the guidance of a spiritual master, Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya. A saintly person is one who follows the Vedic injunctions, which are the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Guru refers to one who gives proper direction under the authority of the Vedic injunctions. And according to the examples of the lives of great personalities, the best way to mold one's life is to follow in the footsteps of the authorized personalities like those mentioned herein by Prithu Maharaj, beginning with Swayambhuva Manu. So it is said, Dharmasya Tattvam Nihitam Guhayam Mahajano Yena Gata Sanpataha. The dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great person. Simply by studying the Vedas, which are variegated, one cannot come to the right path by which religious principles are understood. The solid truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated, self-realized person. Consequently, as the Shastras confirm, one should accept whatever progressive path the Mahajanas advocate. Mahajana yena gataha sapantaha. The path of the Mahajans should be followed without deviation. Religious principles are not easily understood. Eternal religious principles are hidden in the heart of the pure devotees, because the Supreme Lord is residing there. Krishna resides in the heart of his devotees. And along with Krishna, the eternal religious principles reside with Krishna in the heart of the devotee. So therefore, following the footpath of the Mahajanas, following the path laid by the Mahajanas is the best path for spiritual advancement. So therefore, one should mold his life according to the instructions of the Mahajans. In 33, it says, to be situated in a lower status of life is no disqualification for success in devotional service. Mokshadi ananda yara nahe eka kana purananda prapti tanra charana sevanam. The happiness of liberation, whereby one merges into the Lord's existence, cannot be compared to the fragment of the transcendental bliss obtained by engaging in devotional service, by rendering service at the lotus feet of the Lord. In other words, devotional service is our eternal occupation. And everyone has a right to engage in devotional service. No one is deprived of the opportunity to render devotional service. Maya hi sarva bhutanam amrita tvaya kalpate. Krishna is telling the gopis in the Srimad Bhagavatam that everyone, every living entity is qualified to engage in devotional service. Because by that activity, one becomes eligible to experience eternal blissful life. Amrita tvaya kalpate. Amrita tvaya kalpate. One is entitled to experience Amrita, eternal blissful life, by engaging in devotional service. So devotional service is the opportunity for all living entities to experience divine bliss. So no one is disqualified from engaging in Krishna consciousness in devotional service. In 38, although the Supreme Personality of God and Lord Sri Krishna offered respects to Yudhishthira and Kunti, does not mean he is no more the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since he is perpetually supremely perfect, he does not need to obtain anything. But still, it is said that he obtained his opulence by worshiping the lotus feet of the Brahmanas. These are his exemplary actions. When Lord Sri Krishna was in Dwaraka, he offered his respects by bowing down at the lotus feet of Narada. When Sudama Vipra came to his house, Lord Krishna personally washed his feet and gave him a seat on his personal bed. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna offers his respects to Maharaj Yudhishthira and Kunti. The Lord's exemplary behavior is to teach all of us. So, even though Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Swayam Krishna Rashika Shekara Krishna is the ocean of all transcendental relationships. All relationships we can think of are found in Krishna. Every living entity has an eternal relationship with Krishna. So whatever relationships we are trying to experience in this world are simply a reflection of those spiritual relationships that a living entity has with Krishna. So in the absence of those spiritual relationships, we are also establishing some kind of relationships in this material world, temporary relationships that are bound to finish. But our original relationships are found in Krishna. So even though Krishna is seen to be offering obeisances to his own devotees, like Narada Muni, like Sudama Vipra, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, like Kunti Devi, like Nanda Maharaj, like Yashoda Mai. All of these are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna seemed to be offering obeisances to them, or seemed to be carrying out their instructions. That does not reduce the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is only setting an example for us to follow. He is simply showing us how to honor senior personalities, to honor saintly persons. Krishna, he sets the example for the whole world to follow. In 44, it says, gratitude for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of the qualities of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. A devotee acquires all good qualities of the demigods. He is Gunayanam, the reservoir of all good qualities. His only asset is good behavior, and he is grateful. Gratitude for the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one of the qualities of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Everyone should feel grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he is maintaining all living entities and supplying all their necessities. As stated in the Vedas, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Karmam. The Supreme One is supplying all necessities to living entities. The living entity who is therefore grateful to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is certainly qualified with all good characteristics. So gratitude is very crucial in the practice of bhakti. Unless we are grateful for what Krishna has given us, unless we are grateful for the mercy of the Guru, unless we are grateful for the mercy of the Vaishnavas, how can we make advancement in Krishna consciousness? Only a grateful heart can appreciate the mercy of the Supreme, the mercy of the Vaishnavas, and only such people can make substantial advancement. So that is a characteristic of a devotee. A devotee has to be grateful. "49. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer and leader of all living entities. The citizens declared that through being under the protection of Maharaj Prithu, they were directly under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This understanding is a proper situation of social steadiness within this material world. Since it is stated in the Vedas that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer and leader of all living entities, the king or the executive head of the government must be representative of the Supreme Person. Then he can claim honor exactly like the Lord's. How a king or leader of society can become the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also indicated in this verse by the statement that because Prithu Maharaj was preaching the supremacy and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, he was therefore a proper representative of the Lord. So Prithu Maharaj, being the representative of the Supreme Personality of God, being an ideal king, is the maintainer of the living entities. Isa Bhutani Bhutatma Bhuteshu Bhuta Bhavanaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the super soul of all living entities and is the controller and maintainer of everyone. No one can exist without the support of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is very amazing. No one, no living entity in this creation, both spiritual and material, can exist without the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the demons, the asuras, the atheists, agnostics, who deny the existence of God, still they are depending on the energy of the Lord. The air is blowing and everybody is breathing. Where the air is coming from, no one knows. The rain is showering and the water is being used. Nobody knows how it comes. The sun is shining and the vegetables are being produced, fruits are produced, flowers are produced, and the atheists and the devotees alike are enjoying the results. Nobody knows where it's coming from. It is coming from Krishna. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. Everything, material and spiritual, they are all emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, the Lord is the only maintainer of the entire creation, both spiritual and material. Therefore, everyone is depending on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Without the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we cannot survive. And so that brings us to the end of chapter 21. So we go to 22. So this is the chapter we're going to start with today. So I will read the first text, the Sanskrit, and the translation, and then the slides, and then all others can also read. So text chapter 22 says, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. Maitreya Uvacha, Janesu Pragritsu Evam, Pritum Pritula Vikramam, Tatro Pajagmur Munayas, Chatvara Surya Vachasaha. Translation. The great sage Maitreya said, while the citizens were thus praying to the most powerful King Prithu, the four Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, arrived on the spot. No purport. So we'll go to text 2. Seeing the glowing effulgence of the four Kumaras, the masters of all mystic power, the king and his associates could recognize them as they descend from the sky. The slide says, four Kumaras were spacemen who could travel in space without machines. These four Kumaras, as Siddheshwaras, had achieved all the yogic professional achievements, and as such, they could travel in outer space without machines. While they were coming to Maharaj Prithu from outer space, they did not come by airplane, but personally. In other words, these four Kumaras were also spacemen who could travel in space without machines. The residents of the planet known as Shidalok can travel in outer space from one planet to another without vehicles. However, the special power of the Kumaras mentioned herewith is that whatever place they went to would immediately becomes sinless. Amazing. So we can proceed with text 3. Somebody can read text 3 and the slide.
Seeing the four Kumaras, Prithu Maharaj was greatly anxious to receive them. Therefore, the king, with all his officers, very hastily got up, as anxiously as a conditioned soul whose senses are immediately attracted by the modes of material nature. Prithu Maharaj is in the topmost position of spiritual advancement. Prithu Maharaj could not restrain himself from receiving the four Kumaras, who were bright by dint of their spiritual progress, and thus not only he himself, but also his officers and associates all received the four Kumaras. It is said, birds of a feather flock together. In the world, in this world, everyone is attracted by a person of the same category. A drunkard is attracted to a person who are also drunkards. Similarly, a saintly person is attracted by other saintly persons. Prithu Maharaj was in a topmost position of spiritual advancement, and as such, he was attracted by the Kumaras, who were of the same category. It is said, therefore, that a man is known by his company.
Thank you. Next, verse 4.
Text 4. When the great sages accepted their reception according to the instructions of the Shastras and finally took their seats offered by the king, influenced by the glories of the sages, immediately bowed down. Thus he worshipped the four Kumaras. Prithu Maharaj strictly followed the Vedic injunction of Shastra. A spiritual master or the Parampara Acharya should be respected exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Vidhivat is significant in these words. This means that Prithu Maharaj also strictly followed the injunctions of the Shastra in receiving a spiritual master or Acharya of the transcendental disciplic succession. Whenever an Acharya is seen, one should immediately bow down before him. Prithu Maharaj did this properly. Therefore, the words used here are Prashrayanata Gandhara. Out of humility, he bowed down before the Kumaras.
Next 5.
After this, the king took the water which had washed the lotus feet of Kumaras and sprinkled it over his hair. By such respectful actions, the king, as an exemplary personality, showed how to receive a spiritually advanced personality. Prithu Maharaj was an ideal Vaishnava king, even though one may be an incarnation of Krishna or especially empowered by him, he should not advertise that he is an incarnation. People will automatically accept the real truth in due course of time. Prithu Maharaj was the ideal Vaishnava king. Therefore, he taught others by his personal behavior how to receive and respect saintly persons like the Kumaras. When a saintly person comes to one's home, and it is the Vedic custom first to wash his feet with water and then sprinkle this water over the heads of oneself and one's family. Prithu Maharaj did this, for he was an exemplary teacher of the people in general.
Thank you. Text 6.
The four great sages were elder to Lord Shiva, and when they were seated on the golden throne, they appeared just like fire blazing on an altar. Prithu Maharaj, out of his great gentleness and respect for them, began to speak with great restraint as follows. Kumaras declined to engage in procreation in order to increase universal population. In the beginning of the creation, there was a great need of population. Therefore, Lord Brahma was creating one son after another and ordering them to increase. However, when the Kumaras were requested to do so, they declined. They wanted to remain brahmachari throughout life and be engaged fully in devotional service of the Lord. The Kumaras are called Naishtika Brahmachari, meaning they are never to marry. Because of their refusal to marry, Lord Brahma became so angry that his eyes became reddish. From between his eyes, Lord Shiva or Rudra appeared.
Thank you. Text 7.
King Prithu spoke, "My dear great sages, auspiciousness personified, it is very difficult for even the mystic yogis to see you. Indeed, you are very rarely seen. I do not know what kind of pious activity I performed for you to grace me by appearing before me without difficulty. Prithu Maharaj's life full of pious activities. One who is completely freed from all the resultant actions of sinful activities and who is absorbed only in pious activities can engage in devotional service. Although Maharaj Prithu's life was full of pious activities, he was wondering how his audience with the Kumaras happened. He could not imagine what kind of pious activities he had performed. This is a sign of humility on the part of King Prithu, whose life was so full of pious activities that even Lord Vishnu came to see him and predicted that the Kumaras would also come.
Thank you. Text 8.
Any person upon whom the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are pleased can achieve anything which is very rare to obtain in this world, as well as after death. Not only that, but one who also receives the favor of the auspicious Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu, who accompany the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. When the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are pleased, the Lord Vishnu is pleased. The four Kumaras are Brahmanas and they visited the place of Maharaj Prithu. Naturally, Lord Vishnu and his devotees were also present. Under the circumstances, the conclusion is that when the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are pleased with a person, Lord Vishnu is also pleased. This is confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his 8 stanzas on the spiritual master. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasadaha. By pleasing the spiritual master, who is both Brahmana and Vaishnava, one pleases the supreme personality of Godhead.
Thank you. Text 9.
Prithu Maharaj continued, although you are traveling in all planetary systems, people cannot know you just as they cannot know the super soul, although he is within everyone's heart as the witness of everything. Even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva cannot understand the super soul. People under the modes of nature cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in everyone's heart, and his pure devotees, the Vaishnavas, are also traveling all over the world, but those who are under the modes of material nature cannot understand the form of Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of this cosmic manifestation, or the Vaishnavas. It is said, therefore, that one cannot see the Supreme Personality of Godhead or a Vaishnava with these material eyes. One has to purify his senses and engage in the service of the Lord. Then gradually one can realize who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who is a Vaishnava.
Next 10.
Next. A person who is not very rich and is attached to family life becomes highly glorified when saintly persons are present in his home. The master and servants who are engaged in offering the exalted visitors water, a sitting place, and a paraphernalia for reception are glorified, and the home itself is also glorified. The Vedic way of receiving guests. In India, the custom is that even an ordinary person is offered a glass of water if he suddenly visits, and one cannot offer him foodstuff. If there is no water, then one can offer a sitting place, even if it is on straw mats. And if one has no straw mat, he can immediately cleanse the ground and ask the guest to sit there. Supposing that a householder cannot even do that, then with folded hands, he can simply receive the guest saying, "Welcome." And if he cannot do that, then he should feel very sorry for his poor condition and shed tears and simply offer obeisances with his whole family, wife, and children.
Hare Krishna. It's amazing. 11. Abhinjay are not reading.
On the contrary, even though full of all opulence and material prosperity, any householder's house where the devotees of the Lord are never allowed to come in and where there is no water for washing their feet is to be considered a tree in which all venomous serpents live. An envious man is more dangerous than a snake. This is the position of a demonic householders, and such houses are considered to be a residential quarters of the venomous venomous snakes. The members of such families are no better than snakes because snakes are very much envious, and when that envy is directed to the saintly persons, their position becomes more dangerous. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that there are two envious living entities, the snake and the envious man. The envious man is more dangerous than a snake because a snake can be subdued by charming mantras or by some herbs, but an envious person cannot be pacified by any means.
Yes. 12.
Maharaj Prithu offered his welcome to the four Kumaras, addressing them as the best of the Brahmanas. He welcomed them, saying, "From the beginning of your birth, you strictly observe the vows of celibacy, and although you are experienced in the path of liberation, you are keeping yourselves just like small children." Appreciating Vaishnavas by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnav Sreshta. Maharaj Prithu specifically appreciated the position of the Kumaras because they maintained the brahmacharya vow from the very beginning of their birth. Maharaj Prithu, however, expressed his great appreciation of Vaishnavism by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnav Sreshta. In other words, everyone should offer respect to a Vaishnav without considering his source of birth. Vaishnavi Jati Buddhi. No one should consider a Vaishnava in terms of birth. The Vaishnav is always the best of the Brahmanas, and as such, one should offer all respects to the Vaishnava. Not only as a Brahmana, but as the best of the Brahmanas.
That's 13.
Prithu Maharaj inquired from the sages about persons entangled in this dangerous material existence because of their previous actions. Could such persons, whose only aim is sense gratification, be blessed with any good fortune? Somehow I'm not able to see the screen. Hare Krishna.
Brahmanas and Vaishnavas who strictly follow the path of spiritual advancement are fortunate. Maharaj Prithu did not ask the Kumaras about their good fortune, for the Kumaras are always auspicious by dint of their life in celibacy. Since they are Hare Krishna.
Amrinder Hari Prabhuji, would you also like to participate in reading? अरविंद शरण प्रभु जी, अंतर्यामी बलराम प्रभु जी, प्रिया सत्यभामा माता जी.
Sure, Mataji.
I will participate in listening, Mataji.
You always enjoy hearing Bhagavatam.
Mataji.
I know Prabhuji, but please participate also, na?
माताजी देखिए
हमें
मैं
पता
अभी
है
आईटीएफ पढ़ा रहा था इसे
पढ़ने में आता है, आई
बच्चे
नो.
बैठे हुए हैं, माताजी
तो बच्चे आपको क्या कह रहे हैं?
10 मिनट में फिर मैं चला जाऊंगा ऊपर फिर मैं रीडिंग करूंगा माताजी
ठीक है प्रभुजी, हमको बीच में काट देना, फिर फटाफट शुरू कर देना. प्रिय सत्यभामा माता जी विल रीड. रास रमन कृष्ण प्रभु जी, अटेंडेंस भेजूंगी मैं अब एक दिन के अंदर.
रुक्मणी मैं पढ़ूंगा।
थैंक यू प्रभु जी.
राधा कृष्ण प्रभु जी की जय हो।
राधा कृष्ण प्रभु जी, वी आर रीडिंग लाइक कि पहले बस एक पर्पट पढ़ रहे हैं और उसके बाद जो प्रभु जी का स्क्रीन पे आ रहा है तो वो स्लाइड हम रीड कर रहे
I
हैं
know,
सेम.
I know, I know. I'm in class.
अमरिंदर हरि प्रभु जी कुछ कह रहे थे आप? हरे कृष्ण. अरविंद शरण प्रभु जी,
यस माता जी।
प्रभु जी आप तो सबसे पहले ज्वाइन करते हैं, कृपया अगर हो पाए तो प्लीज रीड करेंगे क्या?
यस माता जी।
ठीक है, थैंक यू. किशोरी चित्रा माता जी, किशोरी चित्रा माता जी. प्रभु जी का इंटरनेट शायद आज वीक हो गया, कल तो ठीक चला था। सो अमरिंदर हरि प्रभु जी, मतलब हम ऐसा पढ़ रहे हैं कि ट्रांसलेशन रीड कर रहे हैं और प्रभु जी हमसे पीपीटी शेयर कर रहे हैं स्क्रीन पे। सो जो स्लाइड पे शो हो रहा है सेम वर्स का हम वो पढ़ रहे हैं, मतलब एक जो डिवोटी रीड करेगा वो ट्रांसलेशन रीड करेगा और जो स्लाइड आ रही होगी सेम वर्स की वो रीड करेगा, ऐसा। देन नेक्स्ट डिवोटी नेक्स्ट से रैंडमली कर रहे थे, पता चल जाता है कि कौन कौन डिवोटी की टीम, 4-5 डिवोटीज हो गए तो
प्रभु
देन।
जी आ गए माता जी।
Hare Krishna. My internet is started fluctuating. So I will have to put on my video so that we don't go through this fluctuation. So you, okay, I can share. I can share the. So I think we're on 13, right? Oh, I think we read 13, right? Oh,
Can we read again 13, Prabhu ji?
yeah, we can read the translation and the slide. 13.
Prithu Maharaj inquired from the sages about person entangled in the dangerous material existence because of their previous actions. Would such person whose only aim in is sense gratification be blessed with any good fortune? So, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas who strictly follow the path of spiritual advancement are fortunate. Maharaj Prithu did not ask the Kumaras about their good fortune, for the Kumaras are always auspicious by dint of their life in celibacy. Since they are always engaged on the path of liberation, there was no question of ill fortune. In other words, Brahmanas and Vaishnavas who are strictly following the path of spiritual advancement are always fortunate. The question was asked by Prithu Maharaj for his own sake, since he was in the position of a grasta and in charge of the royal authority. This is Radha Kishore Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji. Next slide.
Next slide.
Hare Krishna.
Translation.
Realized persons progress in the spiritual bliss and come to
When you first read the translation, verse 14, translation, then before you read the slide. Verse 14.
Okay.
Leela Priya Mataji, can you please read? Prabhuji will read next.
Yes, Mataji. Text 14. Prithu Maharaj continued, My dear sirs, there is no need to ask about your good and bad fortune because you are always absorbed in spiritual bliss. The mental conjunction of the auspicious and inauspicious does not exist in you. Self-realized persons progress in spiritual bliss and come to associate with the Supreme Lord. By material association, we lose our spiritual consciousness. Consequently, there is the question of the auspicious and inauspicious. But those who are Atmaram or self-realized have transcended such questions. The Atmarams or self-realized persons gradually making further progress in spiritual bliss come to the platform of association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a perfection of life. In the beginning, the Kumaras were self-realized impersonalists, but gradually they became attracted to the personal pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.14.
Thank you. Text 15. Prabhu can now read text 15 if it's ready. Translation first.
This is Radha Keshav Prabhuji.
Radhakeshan Prabhu, you can read text 15 now. We are still trying to.
Mataji, may I read?
Yeah, read text 15.
I am completely assured that the personalities like you are only friends for the person who are blazing in the fire of material existence. I therefore ask you how in this material world we can very soon achieve the ultimate goal of life.
Now the slide.
When one meets a saintly person, one should immediately surrender unto him. It is a fact that a saintly person go to materialists just to give real information of auspiciousness. Maharaj Prithu was assured of this fact. Therefore, instead of wasting the time by asking Kumaras about their welfare, he preferred to inquire from them whether he could soon be relieved from the dangerous position of materialist existence. This was not, however, a question personally for the Prithu Maharaj. It was it was raised to teach the common man that whenever one meets a great saintly person, one should immediately surrender unto him and inquire about the relief from the material pains of existence. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.15.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Text 16.
Yes, Prabhuji. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always anxious to elevate the living entities who are his parts and parcels. And for their special benefit, the Lord travels all over the world in the form of self-realized persons like you. A
Slide.
devotee's position is in preaching the glories of the Lord all over the world. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is confirmed by the Lord that there are many devotees, but that a devotee who is fully conversant in the Vedic conclusions is very dear to him. Everyone is trying to elevate himself to the highest position according to his mentality. The karmis who have a bodily concept of life try to enjoy sense gratification to the utmost. The Jnani's idea of the highest position is merging into the effulgence of the Lord. But a devotee's highest position is in preaching all of the world the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the devotees are actually the representatives of the Supreme Lord, and as such, they travel all over the world directly as Narayana, because they carry Narayana within their hearts and preach his glories. Bhagavatam 4:22-15 purport.
Thank you.
Welcome, Prabhuji.
Text 17. Next person.
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Sure. Text 17, translation. The great sage Maitreyi continued, thus, Sanat Kumar, the best of the celibates, after hearing the speech of Prithu Maharaj, which was meaningful, appropriate, full of precise words and very sweet to hear, smiled with full satisfaction and began to speak as follows.
Slide.
Yes, Prabhuji. A speech should be composed of selected words, very sweet to hear and appropriate to the situation. Such speech is called meaningful. All these good qualities are present in Prithu Maharaj's speech because he is a perfect devotee. It is said, Yasyasti bhakter bhagvati akinchana sarver gunestatra samaste surah. For one who has unflinching devotional faith in Supreme Personality of Godhead and is engaged in his service, all good qualities become manifest in his person. Bhagavatam 4:22-17 purport.
Thank you. Next,
Thank you,
18.
Sanat Kumar said, My dear King Prithu, I am very nicely questioned by you. Such questions are beneficial for all living entities, especially because they are raised by you who are always thinking of the good of others. Although you know everything, you ask such questions because this is the behavior of a saintly person. Such intelligence is befitting your position. Questions by an exalted person are meant for the benefit of the journal people. The idea is that even if a person is very exalted and knows everything, before his superior, he should present questions. For instance, although Arjuna knew all the transcendental signs, he questioned Krishna as if he did not know. Similarly, Prithu Maharaj knew everything, but he presented himself before the Kumaras as if he did not know anything. The idea is that questions by exalted persons put before the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees are meant for the benefit of the journal people. Therefore, sometimes great personalities put themselves in that position and inquire from the higher authority because they are always thinking of the benefit of others. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:20 to 18, purport.
Thank you. Text 19.
When there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, questions, and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus, such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness. Questions put by a saintly person to another saintly person is spiritually surcharged. Sanat Kumar, one of the Kumaras, informed Prithu Maharaj that his meeting with the Kumaras benefited not only Maharaj Prithu but the Kumaras as well. When Narad Muni questioned Lord Brahma about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Brahma thanked Narad Muni for giving him a chance to speak about the Supreme Lord. Therefore, questions put by a saintly person to another saintly person about the Supreme Personality of Godhead or about the ultimate goal of life surcharge everything spiritually. Whoever takes advantage of such discussions is benefited both in this life and in the next. 4.22.19.
Thank you. Text 20.
Sanat Kumar continued, My dear king, you are already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such attachment is very difficult to achieve, but one who has attained such unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleans the lusty desire from the core of the heart. The heart, the heart of materialistic person is cleansed of the lusty desire by the good association of devotees. As the silver becomes shiny by being polished, the heart of materialistic person is cleansed of lusty desire by the good association of devotees. Actually, the living being has no connection with this material enjoyment, nor with the lusty desires. He is simply imagining or dreaming while asleep. But by the association of pure devotee, he is awakened, and immediately the spirit soul is situated in his own glory by understanding his constitutional position as internal servant of the Lord. Prithu Maharaj was already a self-realized soul. Therefore, he had a natural inclination to glorify the activities of Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.20 purport.
Thank you. Text 21.
It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of the human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental, beyond the modes of material nature. Without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfection stage. Therefore, increased attachment for the Supreme Personal Godhead is advised in all Shastras. That is the only way of detachment from the material existence and is explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.59 as Param Drishtva Nirvartate. One can cease material activities when he actually has the taste for devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended love of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. Prema pumartho mahan. Without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfection stage of transcendental position. Hare Krishna.
Here, 22.
Yes, Ruji. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshwar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. Slide. One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended Yogeshwara Upasanya that one serves the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead. To hear the glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead from the mouth of a pure devotee is to acquire a pious life. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Text 23.
One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in self-gratification, making money. Not only such person, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste of for sense enjoyment. Drinking the nectar of the glories of the Supreme Lord means hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. Vina Harer Guna Piyusha Panat. One must drink the nectar. One must drink the nectar of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this means that one must be always engaged in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. It is the prime method for advancing in spiritual life. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommends this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If one wants to make advancement in spiritual life, by great fortune, he may meet a bona fide spiritual master and from him learn about Krishna. By serving both the spiritual master and Krishna, he gets the seed of devotional service, Bhakti Lata Bija. And if he sows the seed within the heart and waters it by hearing and chanting, it grows into a luxuriant Bhakti Lata or Bhakti Creeper. 23 purport.
Thank you.
Text 24.
Yeah.
A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. The body is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbance. As long as the body is there, it is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbances, the threefold miseries of material existence. We cannot avoid them. Sometimes we receive letters from neophyte devotees questioning why they have fallen sick, all the pursuing Krishna consciousness. They should learn from this verse that they have to become tolerant. Dvandva titikshaya. This is the world of duality. One should not think that because he has fallen sick, he has fallen from Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness can continue without impediment from any material opposition. Lord Sri Krishna therefore advises, Tam statikshasva bharata. My dear Arjun, please try to tolerate all these disturbances. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.24 purport.
Thank you. 25.
The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of transcendental qualities of Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decoration on the years of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the supreme personality of Godhead. The more we hear from the realized souls, the more we advance in devotional life. We can increase our propensity for devotional service by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from realized souls. More we hear from realized souls, more we make advancement in our devotional life. More we advance in devotional life, more we become detached from material world. More we become detached from material world, as advised by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, more we increase in the attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a devotee who actually wants to make progress in devotional service and go back home, back to Godhead, must lose interest in sense enjoyment and associating with the person who are after money and sense gratification. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.22.25 purport.
Thank you. 26.
Upon being fixed in his attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the grace of the spiritual master, and by awakening knowledge and detachment, the living entity situated within the heart of the body and covered by the five elements burns up his material surroundings exactly as fire arising from the wood burns the wood itself. An enlightened living entity with full spiritual knowledge burns up its material covering. Similarly, when a living entity increases his attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is to be considered like fire. A blazing fire is visible by its exhibition of heat and light. Similarly, when the living entity within the heart becomes enlightened with full spiritual knowledge and detached from the material world, he burns up his material covering of the five elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, and becomes free from the five kinds of material attachments, namely ignorance, false egoism, attachment to the material world, envy, and absorption in material consciousness.
Thank you. Text 27.
Welcome, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Translation. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinctions between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before self realization, is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. The slide. When one is liberated from the material qualities, he does not do anything for his personal sense gratification. At that time, all activities performed by him are absolute. In the conditioned stage, there are two kinds of activities. One acts on behalf of the body, and at the same time, he acts to become liberated. The devotee, when he is completely free from all material desires or material qualities, transcends the duality of action for the body and soul. Thank you.
Thank you. 28.
When the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason, he becomes subjected to destinations. But when one is in that transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. When one is devoid of distinctions, there is no longer difference between matter and spirit. Being covered by material desires, a spirit soul is also considered to be covered by designations belonging to a particular type of body. Thus, he considers himself an animal, man, demigod, bird, beast, etc. In so many ways, he is influenced by false identification caused by false egotism. And being covered by illusionary material desires, he distinguishes between matter and spirit. When one is devoid of such distinctions, there is no longer a difference between matter and spirit. At that time, the spirit is the only predominating factor. As long as one is covered by material desires, he thinks himself the master or the enjoyer. 28 purport.
Thank you. Text 29.
Translation. Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and others. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror. When one stops fruitive activities, turning them into acts of devotion, one can understand that we are not different from others. In conclusion, due to different causes, the living entity is visible in different forms as an animal, human being, demigod, tree, etc. Actually, every living entity is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 5.18, it is explained that one who actually sees the spirit soul does not distinguish between a learned Brahmar and a dog, an elephant or a cow. Pandita Sama Darshana. One who is actually learned sees only the living entity, not the outward covering. Differentiation is therefore the result of different karma or fruitive activities. And when we stop fruitive activities, turning them into acts of devotion, we can understand that we are not different from anyone else, regardless of the form. 29 purport.
Thank you. 30.
When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense object for the enjoyment, the minds become agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost become lost, like water, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass straws on its bank. Material desires for sense enjoyment and the cause of fall down in the material world. If a big lake is covered all around by long kusha grass, just like columns, the waters dry up. Similarly, when the big columns of material desires increase, the clear water of consciousness is dried up. Therefore, these columns of kusha grasses should be cut or thrown away from the very beginning. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed that if from the very beginning we do not take care of unwanted grass in the paddy fields, the fertilization agent or water will be used by them, and the paddy plants will dry up. And this material desire for sense enjoyment is the cause of our fall down in this material world, and thus we suffer the threefold miseries and continuous birth, death, old age, and disease. Shrimad Bhagavatam 4.22.30 purport.
Thank you. 31.
When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost. When the consciousness is misguided, one is put into the material atmosphere. The soul is said to be lost when there is no proper knowledge exhibited. Our original consciousness is Krishna consciousness because we are part and parcel of the Krishna. When this consciousness is misguided and one is put into material atmosphere which pollutes the original consciousness, one thinks that he is the product of the material elements. Thus, one loses his real remembrance of his position as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as a man who sleeps forgets himself. In this way, when the activities of the proper consciousness are checked, all the activities of the lost soul are performed on a false basis. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. 32.
Yes, Prabhuji. There is no stronger obstruction to one's self interest than thinking other subject matters to be more pleasing than one's self realization. The slide. When one becomes more interested in body and bodily sense gratification, he creates for himself obstructions on the path of self realization. By the influence of Maya, one becomes more interested in sense gratification, which is prohibited in this world for those interested in self realization. Instead of becoming interested in sense gratification, one should divert his activities to satisfy the senses of the Supreme Soul. Anything performed contrary to this principle is certainly against one's self interest. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, text 33.
For human society, constantly thinking of how to earn money and apply it for sense gratification brings about the destruction of everyone's interests. When one becomes devoid of knowledge and devotional service, he enters into a species of life like those of trees and stones. Human form of life is meant to become to the position of Gyan and Vijnana. Gyan or knowledge means to understand one's constitutional position, and Vijnana refers to the practical application of that knowledge in life. In the human form of life, one should come to the position of Gyan and Vijnana. But if despite this great opportunity, one does not develop knowledge and practical application of knowledge through the help of spiritual master and the Shastras, in other words, if one misuses this opportunity, then in the next life he is sure to be born in a species of non-moving living entities. Non-moving living entities includes hills, mountains, trees, plants, etc. This stage of life is called punyatam or mukhyatam, namely making all activities zero. 33 purport.
Text 34. Translation. Those who strongly desire to cross the ocean of nescience must not associate with the modes of ignorance, for hedonistic activities are the greatest obstructions to realization of religious principles, economic development, regulated sense gratification, and at last liberation. Vedic civilization offers knowledge in the Shastra to regulate our lives. In other words, it is advised that one not act in a way that will obstruct the regular process of advancement in spiritual life and liberation. The Vedic process of sense gratification is therefore planned in such a way that one can economically develop and enjoy sense gratification and yet ultimately attain liberation. Vedic civilization offers us all knowledge in the Shastras, and if we live a regulated life under the direction of Shastra and Guru, all our material desires will be fulfilled. At the same time, we will be able to go forward to liberation. 33 purport.
Thank you. Text 35.
One of the one of the four pillars, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and the liberation. Liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent laws of nature, that is death.
You and I reading. Yes, read it 35. It should be 35.
One of the four principles, namely religion, economic
Okay.
development, and sense gratification, and the liberation. Liberation
Okay.
has to
Taken very seriously. Yeah.
liberation has to taken be very seriously, and the other three are subject to destruction by the stringent laws of nature, death.
That. Okay. Slide.
The elevation to the heavenly planets does not mean freedom from the clutches of birth, death, and old age and disease. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that death is supreme personality of Godhead who ultimately takes away everything acquired by the materialistic person. Foolishly, we do not care for this. Foolishly, we are not afraid of death, nor do we consider that that will take away everything acquired by the process of the dharma, earth, calm. By dharma or pious activities, we may elevate it to the heavenly planets, but this does not mean freedom from the clutches of birth, death, old age, and disease.
Next, 36.
We accept as blessings different states of higher life, distinguishing them from lower state of life. But we should know that such distinctions exist only in relation to the interchange of the modes of material nature. Actually, these states of life have no permanent existence, for all of them will be destroyed by the Supreme Controller. Slide. People are afraid of worshipping Lord Vishnu as Vaishnava are superficially poor. However, when one is sincere in his devotional service, the Lord obliges the devotee to give up his material development and completely surrender unto him. Because the Lord doesn't give blessings of the material opulence to his devotee, people are afraid of worshipping Lord Vishnu because they see that the Vaishnavas who are worshippers of Lord Vishnu are poor in superficial material opulences. Such materialistic persons, however, get immense opportunity for the economic development by worshipping Lord Shiva, for Lord Shiva is the husband of Goddess Durga, the proprietor of the universe. By the grace of the Lord Shiva, a devotee gets the opportunity to be blessed by the Goddess Durga. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Next is 37. 37.
Yes, Prabhuji. Sanat Kumar advised the king, therefore, my dear King Prithu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart along with the individual soul in each and everybody, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body made of life, air, and intelligence. The slide. The presence of Supreme Soul and the individual soul within the body can be perceived by anyone by the fact that as long as the individual soul and the super soul are both living within the body is always shining and fresh. But as soon as the super soul and the individual soul give up possession of the gross body, it immediately decomposes. One who is spiritually advanced can thus understand the real difference between a dead body and a living body. Thank you.
Thank you. Text 38.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as one with the cause and effect within this body, but one who has transcended the illusionary energy by deliberate consideration, which clears the misconception of a snake for a rope, can understand the Paramatma is eternally transcendental to the material creation and situated in pure internal energy. Thus, the Lord is transcendental to all material contamination. Unto him only must one surrender. The Lord is always transcendental to the material manifestation. The Lord is always transcendental to the material manifestation, even though it appears that the Lord and the material manifestation are one and the same. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, he is one and different simultaneously. Material energy is a manifestation of his external potency, and since the potency is identical with the potent, it appears that the Lord and the individual soul are one. But actually, the individual soul is under the influence of material energy, and the Lord is always transcendental to it. For 38 purport.
Thank you. Next 39.
Translation. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-noted desires for spiritual activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. The waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong they can be stopped by Bhakti Yoga. The waves of a river flow incessantly and it is very difficult to stop them. Similarly, the waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong that they cannot be stopped by any process other than Bhakti Yoga. The Bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, become so overwhelmed with transcendental bliss that automatically their desires for material enjoyment stop. Purport 39.
Thank you. 40.
The ocean of nescience is very difficult to cross because it is infested with many dangerous sharks. Although those who are non-devotees undergo several austerities and penances to cross that ocean, we recommend that you simply take shelter of lotus feet of the Lord, which are like the boats for crossing the ocean. Although ocean is difficult to cross, by taking shelter of his lotus feet, you will overcome all dangers. Slide. Human form of life gives the living entity a chance to cross the ocean of nescience. The human form of life gives living entity a chance to cross the ocean of nescience, which is this material universe, and enter into spiritual sky. Although there are many methods or boats by which one can cross the ocean, the Kumaras recommend that the king takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, just as one would take shelter of a good boat.
Thank you. Text 41.
Hare Krishna. The great sage Maitreya continued. Being thus enlightened in the complete spiritual knowledge by the son of Brahma, one of the Kumaras, who was complete in spiritual knowledge, the king worshipped them in the following words. The difference between Atma Medha and Grah Medhi. Therefore, one whose mind is acting fully in Krishna consciousness is called Atma Medha. This may be contrasted to the word Grah Medhi, which refers to one whose brain is always engrossed with the thoughts of material activities. The Atma Medha is always thinking of Krishna's activities in Krishna consciousness. Since Sanat Kumar, who was a son of Lord Brahma, was fully Krishna conscious, he could point out the path of spiritual advancement. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. 42.
Yes, Prabhuji. Text 42. The king said, O Brahmana, O powerful one, formerly Lord Vishnu showed me his causeless mercy, indicating that you would come to my house, and to confirm that blessing, you have all come. The slide. Lord predicted the visit of Kumaras to advise Prithu Maharaj. When Lord Vishnu appeared in the great arena of sacrifice at the time when King Prithu was performing a great sacrifice, he predicted that the Kumaras would very soon come and advise the king. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj remembered the causeless mercy of the Lord and thus welcomed the arrival of Kumaras who were fulfilling the Lord's prediction. Thank you.
Thank you. Text 43.
My dear Brahmana, you have carried out the order thoroughly because you are also as compassionate as the Lord. It is my duty, therefore, to offer you something, but all I possess are but remnants of food taken by the great saintly persons. What shall I give? Prithu Maharaj compared his kingdom to remnants of food of the great sages. Prithu Maharaj got his kingdom from great saintly persons like Brigu and others, just as one gets remnants of food. After the death of King Vena, the whole world was bereft of a popular ruler. There were so many catastrophes occurring that the great saintly persons headed by Brigu created the body of a King Prithu out of the body of his dead father King Vena. Since King Prithu was thus offered the kingdom by the virtue of the mercy of a great saintly persons, he did not want to divide his kingdom among saints like the Kumaras.
Thank you. 44.
Translation. The king continued, therefore, my dear Brahmanas, my life, wife, children, home, furniture, and household paraphernalia, my kingdom, strength, land, and especially my treasury are all offered unto you. Prithu Maharaj offers his private jewelry to the Kumaras. The Ratna Bandha was a special treasury room which contained special jewelries such as bangles, necklaces, and so on, which were presented to the king by the citizens. This jewelry was kept separate from the regular treasury house where all the collected revenues were kept. Thus, Prithu Maharaj offered his stock of private jewelry to the lotus feet of the Kumaras. It has already been admitted that all the king's property belonged to the Brahmanas and that Prithu Maharaj was simply using it for the welfare of the state.
Thank you. 45.
Since only a person who is completely educated according to the principles of Vedic knowledge deserves to be commander in chief, the ruler of the state, and first to chastise or the proprietor of whole planet, Prithu Maharaj offered everything to the Kumaras. Slide. Person bereft of Vedic knowledge should not be appointed head of state. The Vedas maintain that the kingdom should be governed for the purpose of satisfying the supreme personality of Godhead and should therefore be ruled by the representative of the Lord. The head of the state should not be appointed if he is bereft of all the Vedic knowledge. In this verse, it is clearly stated Veda Shastra Vidhi Artha that all the high government posts are specially meant for the person who are well conversant with the teachings of the Vedas.
Thank you. Text 46.
The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras eat their food by the virtue of Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own property, clothe themselves with their own property, and give charity with their own property. Supreme Lord accepts Brahmanas as worshipable. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped with the words Namo Brahmana Devaya, which indicates that the Supreme Lord accepts the Brahmanas as worshipable gods. The Supreme Lord is worshipped by everyone, yet to teach others, he worships the Brahmanas. Everyone should follow the instruction of the Brahmanas, for their only business is to spread Shabd Brahm, or the Vedic knowledge, all over the world. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Haribol, thank you very much. Text 47.
Text 47. Prithu
Yeah.
Maharaj continued, how can such persons who have rendered unlimited service by explaining the path of self-realization in relation to the Supreme Lord and whose explanations are given for an enlightenment with complete conviction and Vedic evidence be repaid except by folded palms containing water for their satisfaction? Such great personalities can be satisfied only by their own activities, which are distributed amongst human society out of their unlimited mercy. Forgetting their real identity, they hover in material existence, transmigrating from one body to another in search of a peaceful life. Since these living entities have very little knowledge of self realization, they are not getting any relief, although they are very anxious to attain peace of mind and some substantial happiness. Saintly persons like the Kumaras, Narad, Prahlad, Janak, Sukdev Goswami, and Kapil Dev, as well as the followers of such authority as the Vaishnava Acharyas and their servants, can render a valuable service to humanity by disseminating knowledge of the relationship between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity. Thank you.
Thank you. 48.
The great sage Maitra continued. Being thus worshipped by Maharaj Prithu, the four Kumaras, who were masters of devotional service, became very pleased. Indeed, they appeared in the sky and praised the character of the king, and everyone observed them. Kumaras praised the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj. Such great saintly persons who have attained complete perfection in mystic yoga are not visible in this age on earth because humanity is not worthy of their presence. The Kumaras, however, praise the characteristics of Maharaj Prithu and his great devotional attitude and humanity. The Kumaras were greatly satisfied by King Prithu's method of worship. It was by the grace of Maharaj Prithu that the common citizens in his domain could see the sorry, that the common citizens in his domains could see the Kumaras flying in the outer space. 48 purpose.
Thank you.
Text
49.
49. Amongst great personalities, Maharaj Prithu was the chief by virtue of his fixed position in relation to spiritual enlightenment. He remained satisfied as one who has achieved all success in spiritual understanding. Actual self-satisfaction can be achieved by pure devotees. Remaining fixed in devotional service gives one the utmost in self-satisfaction. Actually, self-satisfaction can be achieved only by pure devotees who has no desire other than to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to desire, he is fully satisfied with himself. Similarly, a devotee who has no desire other than to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead is as self-satisfied as a Supreme Lord. Everyone is hankering after peace of mind and self-satisfaction, but these can only be achieved by becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. 49 purport.
Thank you. 50.
Being self-satisfied, Maharaj Prithu executed his duty as perfectly as possible according to time and his situation and strength and financial position. His only aim in all his activities was to satisfy the absolute truth. In this way, he acted. He in this way he duly acted. Concealing himself as a pure devotee, he externally manifested as a powerful king. He remained in his position as Kshatriya to rule the world, at the same time remained transcendental to such activities by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Concealing himself as a pure devotee, he externally manifests himself as very powerful and dutiful king. In other words, none of his activities were carried out of his own sense gratification. Everything he did was meant for the satisfaction of senses of the Lord.
Thank you. Text 51.
Maharaja Prithu completely dedicated himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Consequently, all the fruits of his activities were dedicated to the Lord, and he always thought of himself as the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the proprietor of everything. Offering the fruits of one's activity to the Lord to the Lord is karma yoga. In this material world, a person is always thinking of proprietorship of everything he accumulates or works for. When the fruits of one's activities are rendered to the service of the Lord, one is actually practicing karma yoga. Anyone can practice karma yoga, but it is especially easy for the householder who can install the deity of the Lord in the home and worship him according to the methods of Bhakti Yoga. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. 52.
Maharaj Prithu, who was very opulent due to the prosperity of his entire empire, remained at home as a householder. Since he was never inclined to utilize his opulences for the gratification of his senses, he remained unattached, exactly like the sun, which is unaffected in all circumstances. Prithu Maharaj was detached from sense gratification. Prithu Maharaj was special in that, although he was given license to remain a householder, and although he possessed immense opulences in his kingdom, he never engaged in sense gratification. This was a special sign that indicated him to be a pure devotee of the Lord. A pure devotee is never attached by sense gratification, and consequently, he is liberated. In material life, a person engages in sense gratification for his personal satisfaction. But in devotional or liberated life, one aims to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you. Text 53.
Being situated in the liberated position of devotional service, Prithu Maharaj not only performed all fruitive activities but also begot 5 sons by his wife Archi. Indeed, all his sons were begotten according to his own desire. The mental state of parents important in determining the quality of child. The mental state of a father and mother before sex will certainly affect the mentality of the child to be begotten. A child who is begotten out of lust may not turn out as a parent's desire. As stated in the Shastras, Yatha Yonir Yatha Bijam. Yatha Yoniha indicates the mother, Yatha Bijam indicates the father. If the mental state of the parents is prepared before they have sex, the child which they will beget will certainly reflect their mental condition. 53 purport.
Thank you. Text 54.
After begetting 5 sons named Vijitashva, Dhumrakesha, Haryaksha, Dravina, and Vrika, Prithu Maharaj continued to rule the planet. He accepted all the qualities of the deities who governed all other planets. All Kshatriya dynasties on this earth originated from the sun and moon. On this planet Earth, there are two Kshatriya dynasties, one coming from the predominating deity of the sun and the other from the predominating deity of the moon. These dynasties are known as Surya Vansha and Chandra Vansha, respectively. When monarchy existed on this planet, the chief member was one of the members of the Surya dynasty or Surya Vansha, and the subordinate kings belonged to the Chandra Vansha. However, Maharaj Prithu was so powerful that he could exhibit all the qualities of the predominating deities in other planets. 54 purport.
Thank you. 55.
This is Radha Krishna Prabhuji. Request you to please read.
55.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Since Maharaja Prithu was a perfect devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he wanted to protect the Lord's creation by pleasing the various citizens according to their various desires. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj used to please them in all respect by his words, mentality, works, and gentle behavior. Slide. A devotee understands the purpose of the creation. A devotee, however, can understand the purpose of creation, which is to give facility to the individual living entities who want to lord it over the material nature. The ruler of this planet should therefore know that all the inhabitants, especially human beings, have come to this material world for sense enjoyment. It is therefore the duty of the ruler to satisfy them in their sense enjoyment as well as to elevate them to Krishna consciousness so that they all can ultimately return home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Harimal Hare Krishna. Text 56.
Maharaj Prithu became as celebrated a king as Somraj, the king of the moon. He was also powerful and exacting. Just like the sun god who distributes heat and light and at the same time exacts all the planetary waters. Prithu Maharaj acted like the sun and the moon. Like the sun god, Prithu Maharaj distributed his heat and light to give protection to his kingdom. For without heat and light, no one can exist. Similarly, Prithu Maharaj exacted taxes and gave such strong orders to the citizens and government that no one had the power to disobey him. On the other hand, he pleased everyone just like the moonshine. Both the sun and the moon have particular influences by which they maintain order in the universe. And modern scientists and philosophers should become familiar with the Supreme Law's perfect plan for the universal maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you. Text 57.
Maharaj Prithu was so strong and powerful that no one could disobey his orders any more than one could conquer fire itself. He was so strong that he was compared to Indra, the king of heaven, whose power is insuperable. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was also as tolerant as the earth, and in fulfilling various desires of human society, he was like heaven itself. Prithu Maharaj's standard of good governance. Maharaj Prithu maintained all the standards of good government, and he was so invisible that no one could disobey his orders any more than a person could stop heat and light emanating from a fire. He was so strong and powerful that he was compared to the king of heaven, Indra. In this age, modern scientists have been experimented with nuclear weapons, and in a former age, they used to release Brahmastra. But all these Brahmastra and nuclear weapons are insignificant compared to the thunderbolt of the King of Heaven. When Indra releases a thunderbolt, even the biggest hills and mountains crack. On the other hand, Maharaj Prithu was so tolerant as the earth itself, and he fulfilled all the desires of his citizens, just like the torrents of rain from the sky. 57 purport.
Thank you. Text 58.
Just as rainfall satisfies everyone's desires, Maharaj Prithu used to satisfy everyone. He was like the sea in that no one could understand his depths, and he was like Meru, the king of hills, in the fixity of his purpose. Prithu Maharaj as deep as the ocean. Maharaj Prithu used to distribute his mercy to suffering humanity, and it was like rainfall after excessive heat. The ocean is wide and expansive, and it is very difficult to measure its length and breadth. Similarly, Prithu Maharaj was so deep and grave that no one could fathom his purposes. The hill known as Meru is fixed in the universe as a universal pivot, and no one can move it an inch from its position. Similarly, no one could ever dissuade Maharaj Prithu when he was determined. 58 purport.
Thank you. 59.
Maharaja Prithu's intelligence and education were exactly like that of the Yamraj, the superintendent of death. His opulence was comparable to the Himalaya mountains, where all valuable jewels and metals are stocked. He possessed great riches like Kuber, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, and no one could reveal his secrets, for they were like the demigods Varunas. Prithu Maharaj compared to Yamraj, Kuber, and the Himalaya mountains. Yamraj or Dharmaraj, as the superintendent of death, has to judge the criminal living entities who have committed sinful activities throughout their lives. Consequently, Yamraj is expected to be most expert in judicial matters. Prithu Maharaj was also highly learned and exceedingly exact in delivering his judgment upon the citizens. No one could excel him in opulence any more than estimate the stock of minerals and jewels in the Himalaya mountains. Therefore, he is compared to Kuber, the treasurer of heavenly planets. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Then 61 and 62.
In his
60,
bodily beauty,
yeah, 60. 61, 62. Yeah.
in his
60.
bodily strength.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, 60, 61, 62, all three?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. In his bodily strength and in the bodily and the sense, in his bodily strength and in the strength of his senses, Maharaj Prithu was as strong as the wind, which can go anywhere and everywhere. As far as his intolerance was concerned, he was just like the powerful Rudra expansion of Lord Shiva or Sadashiv.
61.
Text 62. In his personal behavior, Prithu Maharaj exhibited all good qualities, and in spiritual knowledge, he was exactly like Brihaspati. In self control, he was like the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. As far as his devotional service was concerned, he was a great follower of devotees who were attached to cow protection and the rendering of all service to spiritual master and the Brahmanas. He was perfect in his shyness and his gentle behavior, and when he engaged in some philanthropic activity, he worked as if he were working for his own personal self. Take 62 slide. Prithu
Yeah.
Maharaj compared to Brihaspati in logic and argument. Maharaj Prithu, although a great devotee, constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord, could defeat all kinds of impersonalists and Mayavadis by his profound knowledge of Vedic scriptures. We should learn from Prithu Maharaj that a Vaishnava or a devotee must not only be fixed in the service of the Lord, but if required, must be prepared to argue with impersonalist Mayavadis with all logic and philosophy and defeat their contention that absolute truth is impersonal.
Thank
Take
you.
63.
63.
Throughout the whole universe, in the higher, lower, and middle planetary systems, Prithu Maharaj's reputation was loudly declared, and all ladies and saintly persons heard his glories, which were as sweet as the glories of Lord Ramchandra.
Slide.
Prithu Maharaj's reputation as great as Lord Ramchandra. Prithu Maharaj's reputation was so great that ladies all over the universe would hear of it with great pleasure. At the same time, his glories were heard all over the universe by the devotees, and they were as pleasing as Ramchandra's glories. Lord Ramchandra's kingdom is still existing, and recently there was a political party in India named the Ram Rajya Party, which wanted to be established a kingdom resembling the kingdom of Rama. Prithu Maharaj's reputation was heard by saintly persons because he exactly presented Lord Ramchandra, the ideal king. 63 forward.
Thank you. And that ends the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the 4th canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaj's Meeting with the Four Kumaras. So are there any questions?
Just small question from verse 40.
Verse 40. Okay, let's go to 40. 40, 40, 40, 40. Yeah, 40.
Here it is saying that although there are many methods or boats by which one can cross the ocean, the Kumaras recommended the king take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. So, are they talking about many methods or boats? Does it mean by 5 types of liberation or anything else?
Hmm.
Okay.
Well, we can look at it from a number of angles. When you talk about the 9 processes of bhakti that are enumerated by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the worship of the lotus feet of the Lord is included. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Armanivedanam, and all of them, they are considered boats because each and every one of them, it is said that if you practice one of those angas of bhakti, it is capable of liberating the living entity that practices it. And we even have examples of devotees who just practice one of those angas of bhakti and they attain perfection. So by the process of those 9 angas, even just by taking shelter of one of those angas, which is compared to a boat, one can be delivered from material existence. We can also look at the process of karma yoga and pure bhakti yoga as boats also, because if one is engaged in activities that are meant for pleasing the Lord, which may be described as karma yoga, as Krishna says in the 9th chapter Bhagavad Gita, where he says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you may perform, and whatever you may give away, do that as an offering unto me. 9:27. Bhagavad Gita 9:27. So Srila Prabhupada explains that that is karma yoga, because we cannot idle ourselves. The living entity cannot stay idle. The living entity will always have to act. So we can engage our activities in the service of the Lord, and such activity can deliver the living entity from material existence. So any activity that can deliver the living entity from material existence is described as a boat. Anything that can take us out of the material world and deliver us into the spiritual world is considered a boat. But of all the various boats that can deliver a living entity from this material world, the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord is the best. So therefore, the Kumaras, they are advising King Prithu that he should take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord as the best boat to reach the spiritual sky. Even the study of scripture, Gyan, can be considered a boat, because by studying the scripture, one is hearing about the Lord. So it can also be considered a boat. Every devotional activity can be considered a boat. But of all these, the most secure boat is to surrender at the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the most secured boat. And that is what all the scriptures are telling us. Take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Sometimes it is explained that to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord means to engage in devotional service. Because service pleases the Lord. And when the Lord is pleased, then the Lord allows a living entity to take shelter at his lotus feet. Unless we are able to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is very difficult to take shelter at the lotus feet. The lotus feet is not for anybody and everybody. The lotus feet of the Lord is for the pure devotees. Only those who have become freed from all material inclinations, they are offered shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. One who is still full of material desires, he cannot take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Only the Akinchana Bhaktas, they can take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So therefore, to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord actually means pure devotional service. And one who takes shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord, he actually owns the Lord. The Lord becomes his property. Krishna becomes subservient to such a devotee. Krishna becomes sold out to such a devotee. So to become a pure devotee is the most glorious activity of the living entity. So Srila Prabhupada has given us this process, the process of becoming pure devotees. Studying Srimad Bhagavatam is a process of becoming pure devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is described as Amala Purana. It is also called the Paramahamsa Samhita. It is the purest Purana, which is meant for the Paramahamsas, the very exalted souls. So studying Srimad Bhagavatam is a process of becoming a Paramahamsa. So we are all very fortunate to be enlisted into the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And therefore, we should make it a lifetime engagement. We should not only study to get a certificate or get a degree. No. Srimad Bhagavatam should be our lifetime engagement. Because it links us to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just by reading through these verses, just by hearing these narrations, we are linked up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the power of hearing. Even though the ears are considered material, but they are so designed that by using the ears, one can advance spiritually, one can develop spiritually. In fact, the ears are so designed that they are never full. The ears are never tired. If you're looking at something with your eyes, sometimes the eyes are tired. You have to blink in order to refresh the eyes. If you are smelling something, at some point, the nasal chambers, the olfactory becomes tired. All the other senses, they can get tired, but the ears are never tired. Since we're born till today, our ears have never been closed. We have always been hearing and hearing and hearing, but they are never full. That is how the ears are designed, for drinking the nectar of Krishna consciousness, for drinking the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the function of these ears. So the ears are considered the best of the senses. Srila Prabhupada explains that when we even go to sleep, the ears don't sleep. When we go to sleep, the ears are awake. And so Srila Prabhupada explains that when you are sleeping and a thief enters your house, your room, it is only by sound that you can wake up. So the ears play such an important role, such important function in our conditioned state as well as in our liberated state. So therefore, hearing is very much recommended by all the acharyas. And the more we hear, the more we are purified. And the more we are purified, the more we come closer to pure devotional service, which endears the living entity to Krishna. So let us utilize these special senses, the ears that Krishna has given us. We see in yesterday's chapter 21, Prithu Maharaj, what was he praying for? Millions of years. Can we imagine that? He's praying for millions of years so that he can hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not the only one who prayed like that. Rupa Goswami also prayed. He says, when I chant the holy name of Krishna, it dances on my tongue. And when that sweet sound enters the holes of my ears, I feel I need more ears to hear, to drink the sweetness of Krishna's holy name. And then when that sweet sound enters the courtyard of the heart, it captures all the senses, captures the mind. So Rupa Goswami is also praying for millions of years to enable him relish the sweetness of Krishna's name. So we can see the importance of the ears. Prithu Maharaj is not praying for many eyes, he's not praying for many tongues, he's praying for many ears. Any comment, any question?
Thank you so very much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Any other question?
I have one more question from 44th verse.
44, okay. 44. Yeah, 44 says Prithu Maharaj offers his private jewelry to the Kumaras. Is that?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. The Ratna Banda was a special treasury room which contained special jewelries, such as bangles, necklaces, and so on, which were presented to the king by the citizens. This jewelry was kept separate from the regular treasury house, where all the collector revenues were kept. Thus, Prithu Maharaj offered his stock of private jewelry to the lotus feet of the Kumaras. It has already been admitted that all the king's property belonged to the Brahmanas, and that Prithu Maharaj was simply using it for the welfare of the state. So what is your question?
Prabhuji, I have read this and this reading, I understood also, but just want to clarify once again that whatever the property a government has, it was that of Krishna's, and whatever the property Maharaj Prithu has, he's saying that this is of Brahmanas. He's just using for the citizens, but that is actually of the Brahmanas. So in the consecutive verses like 45 and in 46 also we read that Brahmanas are property see everything of the Brahmanas, they are using it for the people like this. So this is everything is actual of for the Brahmanas. Am I right?
Yeah. See, everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a fact. Everything that we see is coming from Krishna's energies. So therefore, the original owner of everything is Krishna. And that is why in the 29th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 29th verse of the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Yeah, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam Sarvadehinam. So there Krishna is demonstrating his ownership of everything. Everything belongs to Krishna. The heavenly planets, the earthly planets, the hellish planets, the spiritual world, everything belongs to Krishna. So Everything is Krishna's property. And because the Brahmanas are very dear to Krishna, naturally, whatever belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead also belongs to the Brahmanas. That's natural. Anything that belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead also belongs to the Brahmanas. Because we just read somewhere, and it's coming from the Padma Purana, Krishna is the maintainer of the Brahmanas and the cows. Right? Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. So Krishna is the protector of the cows and the Brahmanas. So that means the Brahmanas and the cows are very dear to Krishna, and Krishna maintains them. So therefore, the property of Krishna becomes the property of the Brahmanas and the cows, because they are so dear to Krishna that Krishna won't give them anything they want. So in that sense, whatever belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead naturally belongs to his devotees. So Prithu Maharaj is saying that here, that everything belongs to the Brahmanas. He is only using them for the maintenance of the citizens. Of course, the Brahmanas are very detached. It is not that because they are very dear to the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord gives them everything, they become attached to it. No, they are detached. Even here, Prithu Maharaj is said to give the treasury to the Kumaras. What has the Kumaras do with? What have they got to do with jewelries? They have nothing to do with jewelries. But the mindset is that one should see that the property that he has belongs to the Brahmanas. The Kumaras are naked. They are not even wearing a piece of copens. They don't need anything. So offering them a house of jewelry means nothing to them because they don't need it. But the principle is one should see that whatever property you have is actually meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Brahmanas. So we are just caretakers. So that should be our mood, that everything belongs to Krishna and his devotees, and we are simply caretakers. So in this way, we don't develop unnecessary attachment to property, to jewelries and all these things. So everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. And whatever belongs to the Supreme Lord also belongs to his devotees, because the Lord belongs to his devotees. So whatever belongs to Krishna also belongs to the devotees. So the two things, they go hand in hand. The pure devotees are the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna is the property of the pure devotees. Mother Yashoda, he could handle Krishna any way he wanted. He could. He could handle Krishna any way he wanted. He could tie Krishna. He could threaten Krishna. He could take stick and frighten Krishna, because Krishna has become the property of Mother Yashoda. So the devotees are the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Krishna is the property of his pure devotees. So whatever belongs to the devotees is offered with love and devotion to Krishna, and whatever belongs to Krishna, Krishna hands it over to his devotees. In fact, there is a particular instance when Durvasa Muni offended Ambarish Maharaj, and the Sudarshan Chakra chased him all over the universe and outside of the universe. He finally landed at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, and was offering prayers and begging that, please, my dear Lord, save me from this burning chakra. And what did Lord Vishnu tell Durvasa Muni? He said, I have donated the chakra to Ambarish Maharaj, and therefore I have no control over it. I've given him. Out of Ambarish Maharaj's devotional service, I have donated my weapons to him. So now you have to go back to Ambarish Maharaj. And if Ambarish Maharaj is happy with you, he can stop the chakra from chasing you. So Durvasa Muni has to pick race and go back to Ambarish Maharaj, fell at his lotus feet, and prayed for Ambarish Maharaj's intervention. And when Ambarish Maharaj picked up Durvasa Muni and embraced him, then the chakra disappeared. So whoever belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead automatically belongs to his pure devotees. And wherever belongs to the pure devotees automatically belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is how intimate the Lord is with his wonderful devotees.
Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's so wonderful.
Hare
Thank
Krishna, Krishna.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say one thing that this is your slides are really amazing. You know, we are reading the translation, and the first heading of these slides are just telling everything, and then the purport. And it was like, first we have got everything, and after that, when you make us understand the more, the most common points, so it is like amazing. And in the school time I used to do like this, precise the paragraph or make the heading, or when we start bhakti, so we start that, give the heading to the Prabhupada's purports or paragraph. So you have already done this thing, and thank you so very much for sharing this. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, we are all indebted to Srila Prabhupada. This is not our property, it's Prabhupada's property. Prabhupada has given us these wonderful purports, Bhaktivedanta purports, for us to read and read. It's a lifetime engagement. It's a transcendental engagement. And we just have to study and study and study until we leave our bodies. That is opportunity we have been given. So what I think of doing is that I think we can end here. No, we still have some little time left. And then we have one chapter left, chapter 23. It has less verses. So probably next Saturday, we would look at those selected verses for 20 minutes or so. Then we plunge into chapter 23, and probably we will finish everything next Sunday and next Saturday if possible. If we are not able to finish on Saturday, then we'll finish on Sunday. So thank you for your association. Thank you for everything. Looking forward to completing our unit next weekend. Hare Krishna.
His Grace Srivas Prabhuji ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Jai, jai, jai. Hare Krishna. Jai.